In the cold, regimented world of military conscription, the soft edges of individuality often vanish beneath the weight of discipline and expectation. For Kim Taehyung, the decision to serve was not just an obligation but a promise to his family, his country, and himself. He believed in duty, honor, and the growth that came with facing challenges head-on. What he didn't foresee was how silent battles often leave the deepest scars. The camp was situated on the outskirts of a sprawling mountain range, where winter seemed eternal, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine. It was a place designed to strip recruits of their civilian selves and forge them into instruments of service. Each day began before dawn with the sharp blare of a bugle. Taehyung, with his lean frame and calm demeanor, often lingered at the back of the line, absorbing the rhythm of military life with quiet determination, but beneath his composed exterior, a storm brewed. He wasn't the fastest runner or the strongest lifter. His hands, more accustomed to the gentle strumming of a guitar, often fumbled with the tasks assigned by his superiors. Yet, he persisted, trusting that effort would bridge the gap between his shortcomings and the expectations placed upon him. One morning, Taehyung's unit was tasked with assembling a complex communications relay under a tight deadline. It was a task that required precision, speed, and teamwork. The commander's voice echoed through the frosty air as he laid out the instructions. Taehyung listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. As the team broke into groups, he found himself paired with Corporal Min, an older conscript known for his sharp tongue and intolerance for imperfection. The task proved challenging from the start. The relay's components were unfamiliar, their instructions vague. Taehyung's hands trembled as he tried to fit the delicate parts together, his breath clouding in the icy air. Minutes turned into an hour, and frustration began to seep into the group. Corporal Min, who had been silently observing, finally snapped, "Can't you do anything right?" Min's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Do you even know why you're here? You're dragging all of us down." Taehyung froze, the sting of Min's words sharper than the biting cold. He stammered an apology, his voice barely audible. The others exchanged uneasy glances, but said nothing. The unspoken hierarchy of military life demanded silence in the face of authority. Over the next few weeks, Min's criticism grew harsher, evolving from pointed remarks to outright humiliation. In the mess hall during drills, even in the barracks, Taehyung became a target. Min mocked his mistakes, belittled his efforts, and questioned his worth. The other conscripts, wary of drawing Min's ire, kept their distance. Taehyung bore it all in silence. He told himself it was temporary, that he would prove his worth through perseverance. But the weight of Min's words began to take its toll. Sleep eluded him, and his appetite waned. The once vibrant spark in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a shadow of self-doubt. One evening, after a grueling day of drills, Taehyung lingered by the edge of the training ground, staring at the distant mountains. The setting sun painted the peaks in hues of gold and crimson, a stark contrast to the heaviness in his heart. He thought of home, of his mother's warm smile and his father's quiet strength. He thought of the friends he had left behind and the dreams he had yet to chase. The voice startled him. He turned to see Private Lee, a fellow conscript who had always offered him a kind word or a reassuring pat on the back. "You okay?" Lee asked, his eyes filled with genuine concern. Taehyung hesitated, the urge to unburden himself battling with a fear of being seen as weak. Finally, he nodded, forcing a smile. Lee didn't press further, but his presence was a small comfort in the isolating world Taehyung found himself in. The breaking point came during a particularly harsh training exercise. The unit was tasked with navigating a dense forest at night, carrying heavy packs and relying solely on a map and compass. Taehyung struggled under the weight of his pack, his steps faltering on the uneven terrain. "Keep up or stay behind." Min barked, his patience worn thin. As the night wore on, Exhaustion took hold. Taehyung tripped on a root, his knee slamming into the frozen ground. Pain shot through him, but before he could rise, Min was there, towering over him. "You're pathetic," Min spat. "You don't belong here. You're a burden to everyone around you." Something inside Taehyung shattered. The words he had tried to ignore, the pain he had tried to suppress, it all came rushing to the surface. He stayed on the ground, his body trembling, tears streaming down his face. The unit fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Lee stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "That's enough, Corporal." Min turned, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "Excuse me?" "You've made your point," Lee said. "Let him get up." The tension was palpable, but Lee's quiet defiance broke the spell. Min scoffed and turned away, muttering under his breath. Lee extended a hand to Taehyung, who hesitated before taking it. As he rose, something shifted within him. The shame and helplessness were still there, but so was a flicker of something else. Determination. In the days that followed, Taehyung began to rebuild himself, piece by fragile piece. He sought out guidance from his peers, asking questions, learning from his mistakes. Lee became a quiet ally, offering encouragement and a listening ear. The turning point came during a leadership exercise, where the unit was tasked with devising a strategy for a simulated mission. Taehyung, to everyone's surprise, volunteered to lead. His plan was meticulous, his instructions clear. When the exercise concluded, the commander commended the team's success, attributing it to Taehyung's efforts. For the first time in months, Taehyung felt a glimmer of pride. He realized that his worth wasn't determined by the harsh words of others, but by his own resilience and growth. Min's bullying didn't stop entirely, but it lost its power. Taehyung no longer carried the weight of Min's words alone. He had found strength in himself and support in those who believed in him. As the months passed, Taehyung completed his service, leaving the camp behind but carrying the lessons he had learned. He returned home a changed man, wiser, stronger, and more compassionate. The scars of his experience remained, but they no longer defined him. And the quiet moments of his new life, when he strummed his guitar or gazed at the mountains, he thought of those who had helped him through the darkness. And he promised himself that he would do the same for others, ensuring that no one else would face their battles alone. As Taehyung settled back into civilian life, the memories of his service lingered like echoes, sometimes faint and sometimes roaring back with vivid intensity. The bullying he endured was not something he could forget overnight, but he chose to confront it rather than suppress it. Each day, he worked to transform the pain into a source of strength and empathy. He began writing about his experiences, not in anger, but as a way to process them and to give voice to the struggles many like him faced in silence.